Malik King waited 3 years to watch his father fall, not stumble, not lose a little money. Fall. The kind of fall that made billionaires stop answering calls. The kind of fall that made board members turn pale. The kind of fall that made a man's name disappear from buildings he built with his own blood, sweat, and secrets. And on a cold Friday night in Atlanta, inside a glass tower that touched the clouds, Malik finally got what he wanted. King Enterprises was collapsing. Federal investigators were downstairs. News vans were outside. Shareholders were panicking. And David King, the most feared black billionaire CEO in the South, sat alone in his private office, staring at the city like a man who had already lost everything. Malik walked in wearing a black suit, diamond cufflinks, and a smile cold enough to freeze the whole room. For years, he had dreamed of this moment. The moment he would look his father in the eyes and say, "Now you know how it feels." Because David King had betrayed him first. David had stripped Malik of his CEO title, frozen his bank accounts, took his shares, threw him out of King Tower like he was a stranger off the street. The same father who once carried him on his shoulders now watched security escort him into the rain with one cardboard box and nowhere to go. That night, Malik promised himself one thing. He would not cry. He would not beg. He would build his own empire in silence, come back stronger, and turn his father's legacy into dust. And he did, brick by brick, deal by deal, secret by secret. Malik became the ghost behind his father's downfall. He bought companies in the shadows. He turned allies into enemies. He exposed hidden crimes, buried lies, and old family wounds that were never supposed to see daylight. But as David's empire burned, something strange happened. David did not fight back. Not once. He did not expose Malik. He did not block him. He did not even defend himself. He just sat there, taking every hit like a man who believed he deserved it. Then, on the night Malik was supposed to sign the final papers and take over everything, his phone rang. It was Lena Park, the one investigator who never sounded scared. But that night, her voice shook. "Malik," Lena said softly, "do not sign those papers." Malik frowned. "Why?" Lena went quiet for one long second. Then she said the words that changed his life forever. "Because the man you are trying to ruin has been protecting you since the day you were born." Malik laughed, but there was no joy in it. "That's impossible," Malik said. "That man destroyed me." "No," Lena replied. "He destroyed himself so you could survive." And before Malik could speak, Lena added one more thing. "Go to Piedmont Hospital, room 917. Your father has 48 hours left." And Malik, "Ask him about your mother's red envelope." The phone went dead. For the first time in years, Malik King felt fear. Not fear of losing money. Not fear of losing power. Fear that the story he had told himself was wrong. Fear that the villain in his life was never really a villain. Fear that the father he hated most was the only reason he was still alive. So Malik drove through the rain to the hospital, his hands tight on the steering wheel, his heart beating like a drum. When he reached room 917, David King was lying in bed, weak, gray, and smaller than Malik had ever seen him. The billionaire lion of Atlanta looked like a tired old man. Beside him was a red envelope with Malik's name written on it in his mother's handwriting. His mother had been gone for 13 years, or so he thought. David opened his eyes slowly. Then he whispered, "Son, I wanted to tell you sooner." Malik stepped back. The room started spinning. Because inside that envelope was a secret so deep, so painful, and so powerful, it would make Malik question every memory, every betrayal, every tear, and every act of revenge that brought him there. This is the story of a young black billionaire who lost his throne, a son who went to war with his father, a father who loved in silence, a woman who carried a secret from beyond the grave, and a revenge mission that turned into the most heartbreaking truth Malik King would ever face. Because sometimes, the person who breaks the heart is the same person who has been holding it together all along. So stay close for all the intriguing twists. And by the end, Malik King will learn that the throne he thought was stolen was never the real inheritance. But to understand how Malik King ended up standing in a hospital room, about to uncover a truth that would shatter his world, we have to go back. Back to the beginning. Back to the day the rain fell harder than it ever had in Atlanta. Back to the day Malik King lost everything. It was a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that starts like any other day. Malik woke up in his penthouse on the 60th floor of King Tower. The sun was rising over the Atlanta skyline, painting the city in gold and orange. He stretched, walked to his floor-to-ceiling window, and smiled. At 28 years old, Malik King had the world in his hands. He was the CEO of King Enterprises, the youngest black billionaire in the South, and in 3 hours, he was about to close the biggest deal in the company's history, a $900 million merger with a pharmaceutical company called Apexcure. This deal was his baby. He had spent 14 months negotiating it, 14 months of sleepless nights, endless meetings, and fighting with board members who thought he was too young, too reckless, too much of a risk. But Malik didn't care what they thought. He had something to prove, not to them, to his father. David King had built King Enterprises from nothing, a small textile factory in the West End of Atlanta, grown into a billion-dollar empire that touched real estate, technology, and now medicine. And David never let Malik forget it. Every achievement Malik earned was met with a nod and a critique. Good work, son, but the overhead was too high. Nice deal, but you moved too fast. You're getting better, but you're not ready. Ready? That was the word that haunted Malik. Ready for what? Ready to be the man his father was, ready to wear the crown that felt like it was always just out of reach. Malik shook the thoughts away. Today was his day. Today, he would show David King that his son was more than ready. He was born for this. The King Enterprises boardroom was freezing. It was always freezing. David liked the temperature low. He said it kept people sharp. Malik sat at the head of the long mahogany table, his heart racing as the final signatures were placed on the merger documents. Across from him sat the Apexcure executives, smiling, shaking hands, already talking about expansion plans. The deal was done. Malik had won. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling for the first time in months. Then the double doors swung open, and David King walked in. He didn't look like a man who was happy. He looked like a man who had come to deliver a verdict. His silver beard was perfectly trimmed. His dark suit was tailored to perfection. His cane tapped against the marble floor as he made his way to the other end of the table. The room went silent. Even the Apexcure executives stopped smiling. David didn't sit. He just stood there, looking at his son with eyes that gave nothing away. "Father," Malik said, keeping his voice steady, "I didn't expect you today." David's jaw tightened. "I can see that," Malik frowned. "The merger is closed. Apexcure is ours. This is a good day for King Enterprises." David didn't respond. Instead, he turned to the board members sitting along the walls, all 12 of them. Men and women Malik had worked with for years, people he trusted, people he thought were on his side. David placed both hands on the table and spoke in a voice that sounded like gravel. "I call for an emergency vote." Malik's stomach dropped. "What?" David ignored him. Under Article 14, Section 9 of the King Enterprises Founding Charter, the board has the authority to review the conduct of any executive whose actions pose a material risk to the long-term stability of this company. Malik stood up. "Material risk? Father, what are you talking about? I just closed a $900 million deal." David finally looked at him, and the look in his eyes broke something inside Malik. It wasn't anger. It wasn't disappointment. It was nothing. Cold, flat, empty. "The merger with Apexcure," David said slowly, "has exposed this company to catastrophic liability, unrecorded debts, pending federal investigations into fraudulent clinical trials. You bought a company that is about to be indicted, Malik, and you didn't know." Malik felt the blood drain from his face. "That's impossible. I reviewed their books. I had 3 independent audits. 3 audits that missed what I found in 48 hours," David interrupted. Malik turned to the board. "You can't believe this. Check the files. I have documentation," but nobody looked at him. Nobody spoke. One by one, they raised their hands. The vote was 12-0. David's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Effective immediately, Malik King is removed as CEO of King Enterprises. All gifted shares are hereby reclaimed under the Founders Protection Clause. All company assets, accounts, and properties under his name are frozen pending internal review." Malik couldn't breathe. He looked at the faces around him. Men who had smiled at him last week, women who had congratulated him on his vision. None of them would meet his eyes. "Father," Malik whispered. "Why are you doing this?" David didn't answer. He just turned and walked toward the door, but before he left, he paused. "Security will escort you out." And just like that, Malik King wasn't a billionaire anymore. He wasn't a CEO. He wasn't a son. He was nothing. The walk to the elevator felt like a funeral procession. 2 security guards walked behind Malik, close enough to make sure he didn't take anything that wasn't his. The same guards who used to call him Mr. King. Now they called him nothing. He stepped into the elevator and watched the numbers drop. 60. 50. 40. His phone buzzed. It was a text from his assistant. I'm sorry, Mr. King. My access has been cut. I can't help you. Then another buzz, this time from his bank. Your accounts have been frozen due to an ongoing investigation. Another buzz. Your penthouse lease has been terminated by King Enterprises management. By the time the elevator doors opened to the lobby, Malik had lost his job, his money, his home, and his name. He walked out into the Atlanta afternoon, the sun still shining like nothing had happened, like the world hadn't just ended. A security guard handed him a cardboard box. Your personal items, sir. Malik looked inside. A picture of his mother, a coffee mug, a book. The Count of Monte Cristo. His mother had given it to him when he was 12. Inside, she had written, For my Malik, remember the sweetest victory is the one that makes you stronger, not bitter. He stared at her handwriting. The woman who had died when he was 15. The woman who had been his whole world. The woman his father had barely visited in the hospital because he was too busy building an empire. Malik's grief turned into something else, something hot, something sharp. He looked up at King Tower, the building that bore his name, the building his father had just taken from him. And in that moment, Malik made a promise. He would not let this stand. He would not disappear. He would come back, and when he did, David King would lose everything. Malik didn't know where to go. He had no money, no car. The valet wouldn't even look at him when he asked for his keys. The company car had been repossessed in real time. So he walked, through the streets of Atlanta, past the tourists in Centennial Olympic Park, past the people who didn't know that a billionaire was walking among them, broke and alone. He ended up at a small park in the West End, the same neighborhood where King Enterprises began. He sat on a bench, the cardboard box next to him, and stared at the ground. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just sat there trying to understand what had happened. And then he heard a voice behind him. Well, look what the cat dragged out of King Tower. Malik turned. And there, standing with her hands on her hips, was Jade Carter. Light-skinned, curly afro, leather jacket, and boots that cost more than most people's rent. She was the only friend from his old life who had ever kept it real with him. The only one who didn't care about his money, because she had her own. Jade Carter was a private investigator, one of the best in the city. She was also the only person Malik had ever trusted with his real feelings. Not that he ever shared much, but Jade had a way of reading him like a book. She sat down next to him on the bench, not even caring that her jacket might get dirty. I heard, she said quietly. Malik stared ahead. Then you know I have nothing left, Jade snorted. Boy, please, you have a brain, you have a degree from Wharton, and you have me. That's more than most people have. Malik shook his head. You don't understand. My father didn't just fire me. He erased me. He took my shares, my money, my name. He made sure I would have nothing to come back to. Jade was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that changed everything. What are you going to do about it? Malik looked at her. I'm going to destroy him. Jade raised an eyebrow. Destroy him how? You're broke, you're homeless. And if you try to fight him legally, he'll bury you in court fees before the first hearing. Malik smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm not going to fight him legally. Jade studied his face. Then she grinned. Now that sounds like the Malik I know. What do you need? Malik stood up, the cardboard box in his arms. I need a place to stay. I need a new identity. And I need to find every person David King has ever hurt. Jade stood up too. I can do the first two. The third one, that's going to cost you. Malik looked her dead in the eye. When I'm done, I'll give you half my empire. Jade laughed. I don't want your empire. I just want front row seats when you take your father down. She extended her hand. Malik shook it. And just like that, the war began. But Malik knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed more than a private investigator. He needed money. He needed strategy. He needed someone who knew how to build an empire in the shadows. So he made a call to Rashad Coleman, his old roommate from Wharton, the loudest, flashiest, most annoying man Malik had ever met, but also the smartest private equity shark in the game. Rashad answered on the first ring. Malik King, I heard the news, man. I was just about to send you a fruit basket. You like mangoes, or you more of a pineapple type? Malik didn't laugh. I need a favor. Rashad's voice got serious. Name it. I need to set up a shell company, clean, untraceable, and I need capital to start acquiring assets. Assets? What kind of assets? The kind that will let me destroy King Enterprises from the outside. There was a pause on the line. Then Rashad whistled low. Man, you really trying to go to war with your daddy? He started it. Malik said coldly. I'm going to finish it. Another pause, then Rashad laughed. All right, meet me in Chicago tomorrow. I know a guy who knows a guy. And Malik? Yeah, Make sure you bring your A game, because if you're doing this, we're doing it right. Malik hung up. He looked at Jade. Looks like we're going to Chicago. Jade grinned. Good, I need some deep dish pizza anyway. And that was how it started. A son betrayed, a father silent, a team assembled, and a plan forming in the shadows. But what Malik didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that this war would cost him more than money. It would cost him the truth. And the truth would hurt more than any betrayal ever could. But before we get there, we have a lot more ground to cover. We have to watch Malik rise from nothing. We have to see the first cracks in David King's armor. And we have to meet the one person who holds the key to everything. The woman in the red envelope, Malik's mother. Because she's not just a memory, she's a secret. And her secret is about to change everything. If you want to see how Malik builds his empire in the shadows and makes his first move against his father, hit that like button right now and subscribe. When Malik King and Jade Carter landed in Chicago the next morning, the wind hit Malik in the face like it had personal problems with him. Jade pulled her leather jacket tighter and glared at the sky. Chicago does not welcome people, Jade said. Chicago tests people. Malik didn't smile. He stood outside Hare Airport with one suitcase, one dead company phone, one frozen bank account, and a heart full of revenge. Less than 24 hours ago, he had been the CEO of King Enterprises. Now he was standing on a curb, waiting for his loudest friend to pick him up. A black Rolls-Royce pulled up like it owned the airport. The back window rolled down. Rashad Coleman leaned out with sunglasses on, even though the sky was gray. Malik King, Rashad shouted. Look at you, man, homeless but still moisturized. That is discipline. Jade looked at Malik. This is your financial genius, Malik sighed. Unfortunately. Rashad stepped out wearing a red designer coat, black gloves, and a smile so bright it could light up a basement. He hugged Malik hard, then he stepped back and looked him up and down. Dang, Rashad said softly. They really did you dirty. Malik's jaw tightened. Can we go? Rashad nodded. Of course, revenge waits for no man. Also, I got a meeting at 11 and brunch at 1, so we need to ruin your father's empire on a tight schedule. Jade smirked. I like him. Malik shook his head and climbed into the car. But as the Rolls-Royce pulled away from the airport, Malik looked out the window and felt something strange. Not hope, not peace, something colder. Purpose. David King had taken everything from him. So Malik was going to build something David could not touch. Something hidden, something patient, something hungry. And when the time came, that thing would step out of the shadows and swallow King Enterprises whole. Rashad's office sat high above downtown Chicago, with a view of Lake Michigan that looked calm enough to lie to people. Inside, everything was glass, marble, and money. Jade walked in, looked around, and whispered, This place smells like expensive bad decisions. Rashad pointed at her. That is called capitalism, Miss Carter. It smells like cologne and tax attorneys, Jade said. Malik ignored them both. He sat at the conference table and opened the folder he had carried from Atlanta. Inside were printed documents, old merger notes, board names, debt reports, subsidiary charts, and one photo of King Tower. Rashad's smile faded when he saw the photo. All right, Rashad said. Talk to me. Malik leaned forward. King Enterprises looks powerful from the outside. Real estate, health tech, logistics, luxury hotels, food distribution, and private security contracts. But my father built it like a spider web. Every division depends on another division. If one part shakes, the whole web feels it. Rashad nodded slowly. And you know where to shake it. I built half the new structure, Malik said. I know the weak points. Jade crossed her arms. Malik knows the weak points because David made him study every piece of the company since he was 16. While other boys were learning how to talk to girls, Malik was reading quarterly reports. Rashad looked at Malik. That explains a lot. Malik gave him a cold look. Focus. Rashad raised both hands. My bad, CEO of Pain. Malik pointed to the first chart. First, logistics. King Enterprises moves a large amount of product through Savannah and Charleston. If we control the smaller vendors around those ports, we control pressure. He pointed to the second chart. Second, data. King uses outside analytics for pricing and expansion. If those tools become unavailable, the company loses speed. Then the third chart. Third, reputation. My father has enemies, former partners, workers who were pushed out, communities that feel forgotten. We don't lie. We don't create fake scandals. We find the truth and put a spotlight on it. Jade smiled a little. See, That part I like, no fake dirt, only real dirt. Real dirt sticks better. Rashid sat back and tapped his pen on the table. This will take money. Malik's face stayed still. I know. How much do you have? Malik didn't answer. Jade answered for him. His accounts are frozen. His father even took the company car. They repossessed that thing so fast it almost left tire marks on his pride. Rashid winced. That bad? Worse, Malik said. Rashid looked at him for a long moment. Then he opened his laptop. I'll front the first round. Malik shook his head. No, Rashid frowned. Man, don't start with that pride thing. Pride is cute when rent is paid. I said no. Rashid leaned forward. Listen to me. This is not charity. This is investment. You build this company, I get equity. You win, I win. You lose. Jade raised an eyebrow. He loses what? Rashid paused. My confidence. Jade laughed once. That's it. Rashid shrugged. I was going to say kneecaps, but this is a classy office and I don't need YouTube demonetizing our lives. Malik finally smiled, just a little. It was gone fast, but Jade saw it. And for 1 second, her eyes softened. Then Malik looked at Rashid. Fine, but this company cannot connect to my name. Rashid nodded. Then we form a private investment firm. Legal, clean, quiet, no messy nonsense. We use attorneys, trusts, and holding companies. You stay in the dark until the right moment. Jade pulled out her notebook. What do we call it? Malik looked at the photo of King Tower, the gold letters, the name his father had turned into a weapon. Then Malik said, Crownless Capital. Rashid grinned. That is dramatic as hell. Jade nodded. It fits. Malik's voice dropped. I had a crown yesterday, today I don't, so I'll build a kingdom without one. The room went quiet. Even Rashid stopped joking. Because in that moment they all understood something. Malik King wasn't just angry. He was becoming dangerous in a quiet way. The kind of dangerous that didn't yell. The kind that planned. For the next 6 months, Malik disappeared. Not physically. People still saw him in Atlanta sometimes. But not the old Malik. Not the billionaire prince walking through King Tower with custom suits and a private driver. This Malik lived in a small townhouse in West End, owned under his mother's old trust. At least that was what Jade found. The townhouse was modest, clean, and hidden behind tall magnolia trees. Malik had never known it existed. When Jade handed him the keys, he stared at them. My mother owned this, Jade nodded. According to the records, yes, Camille King bought it years ago through a family trust. Malik looked at the small brick house. His throat tightened. My father never told me. Jade stood beside him. Maybe he didn't know. Malik gave her a look. Jade sighed. Okay, fine. David King knows when somebody sneezes near his tax records. He knew. Malik's face hardened. Then he hid it from me. Jade didn't answer because she didn't know what to say. The house smelled faintly of cedar and lemon cleaner. There were old books on the shelves, a cream couch, and a framed photo of Camille King on the mantel. In the photo, Camille was smiling in a yellow dress, her hand resting on young Malik's shoulder. Malik stood in front of it for a long time. Jade watched him from the doorway. You okay? Jade asked softly. Malik didn't turn around. No. It was the most honest thing he had said all week. Jade walked over and stood next to him. She would hate this, Jade said. Malik looked at her. My mother, Jade nodded. She would hate that you're hurting. She would hate what he did to me more. Jade looked at the photo again. Maybe. Malik stared at his mother's face. Then he whispered, he took me from her too. Jade's brow furrowed. What do you mean? He wasn't there when she died, Malik said. He was in London closing a hotel deal. I was 15 holding her hand alone. She asked for him. He didn't come. Jade's face changed. She had heard parts of this story before, but never like this. Never with Malik's voice cracking in the middle. I'm sorry, Jade said. Malik blinked once hard, then the wall came back up. Don't use it. Jade stepped back. What? Use it, Malik repeated. Find everything, every trip, every lie, every person he put before us. If he wants to be remembered as a legend, I'll show the world the truth. Jade studied him. Malik, I'm with you. But I need to say something before this gets ugly. He turned to her. Jade said, revenge can be a fire, but if you hold fire too long, it does not ask who deserves to burn. It just burns whoever is closest. Malik looked away. Then don't stand too close. Jade's eyes flashed with hurt, but she covered it with a smirk. Too late. I've been standing close since high school, genius. Malik didn't respond, but he heard her, and Jade knew he heard her. Crownless Capital moved quietly. Rashid handled the money. Jade handled the investigations. Malik handled strategy. The first purchase was a struggling logistics company near the port of Savannah. Not a large company, not one that would make headlines, but it had contracts with 3 vendors King Enterprises used every month. The second purchase was a data software firm in Austin. Small team, smart product, almost invisible. But King Enterprises depended on that firm for pricing models in several fast-growing markets. The third purchase was a local business media platform in Atlanta. It looked harmless. Just interviews, company news, industry updates, and business podcasts, but people trusted it. And in business, trust is power. Malik did not move fast. He moved like winter. Slow, quiet, certain. Every week he learned more. Every month, Crownless Capital owned another piece of the world around King Enterprises. And every night, Malik worked until his eyes burned. Sometimes Jade fell asleep on the couch with case files across her lap. Sometimes Rashid called at midnight with market updates and terrible jokes. Once at 2 a.m, Rashid called and said, "Good news and bad news." Malik rubbed his eyes. "What?" Rashid said. "Good news, we closed the Austin deal." "And the bad news?" "I accidentally told the seller you were a mysterious genius with cheekbones." Malik stared at the phone. "Why?" Rashid said. "Because it was true and I was tired." Malik hung up. Across the room, Jade laughed so hard she dropped a file. Moments like that kept Malik human. Barely. But each time he laughed, guilt followed. Because a part of him believed laughter was a betrayal. How could he laugh while his father still sat on the throne that had been stolen from him? So he worked harder. He slept less. He became sharper and colder, Jade noticed. One night she found him in the kitchen standing over a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. It was 3:17 a.m. Malik, Jade said. "When was the last time you slept?" He looked at the window. "I slept yesterday." "No," you blinked slow. "That is not sleep." "I'm fine." Jade walked closer. "You're not fine. You're running on caffeine and hatred. That is not a meal plan." Malik's mouth twitched. "I'll rest when this is over." Jade's voice softened. "And what if it never feels over?" He didn't answer. Jade stepped beside him. For a moment the kitchen was quiet. Then she said, "I miss my friend." Malik looked at her. Something passed between them, old memories. High school dances he never noticed she wanted him to ask her to. College calls that lasted until sunrise, the way she always showed up. The way he always let her, but Malik was not ready for softness. Not yet. He looked away first. "Don't," Malik said. Jade swallowed. "Don't what?" "Don't make this about feelings." Jade laughed, but it sounded tired. "Of course, feelings, the enemy of emotionally constipated billionaires everywhere." Malik said nothing. Jade grabbed her jacket. "I'm going home before I say something that makes both of us uncomfortable." At the door, she paused. "But Malik," he looked at her. Jade said, "When you finally get what you want, I hope somebody you love is still standing next to you." Then she left. Malik stood in the kitchen for a long time. And for the first time since his fall, revenge felt heavy. Not wrong, just heavy. Before this story goes deeper, pause for 1 second and think about this. If someone took everything from a person, would that person want revenge too? Or would that person walk away and protect their peace? Drop a comment with what Malik should do, because from here, the story only gets darker, messier, and more emotional. And if this story already has your attention, hit the like button and subscribe, because that secret that changes everything is about to be revealed. Now let's keep going. The first strike happened on a Monday morning. King Enterprises' logistics division received a simple notice. A vendor contract was being renegotiated. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, just new rates, longer delivery timelines, stricter penalties. To anyone else, it looked like normal business. But to King Enterprises, it was a problem, a costly one. By Wednesday, 2 more vendors sent similar notices. By Friday, shipments were delayed in Savannah. A hotel project in Buckhead missed a supply deadline. A health tech warehouse outside Atlanta paid extra fees to avoid more delays. By the next week, King Enterprises' logistics costs had jumped. Not enough to collapse the company, just enough to make investors ask questions. David King appeared on a local business show that Thursday. Malik watched from his townhouse. David sat tall in a navy suit, his cane resting beside him. The host asked, "Mr. King, are these supply issues a sign that King Enterprises is losing control of its vendor network?" David smiled politely. "Every large company faces pressure from time to time. We are handling it." He looked calm. Too calm. Malik leaned forward. Jade sat across from him with popcorn. "You know," Jade said, "watching rich men lie on television is my favorite sport." Malik didn't blink. "He knows." Jade stopped chewing. "Knows what?" "He knows someone is targeting him." Jade shrugged. "Of course he knows. David King didn't build an empire by being slow." Malik watched his father's face. David looked older than he remembered. Not weak, just tired. For a second, Malik felt something small tug at him. Then he remembered standing in the lobby with a cardboard box. The feeling died. Good, Malik said. Let him wonder. The second strike was reputation. Jade had spent months interviewing former employees, contractors, and community leaders. She found people who said King Enterprises had ignored neighborhood concerns during a major redevelopment project in Atlanta's West End. Not dramatic enough for national news, but real enough to matter. Families complained about rising rents. Small shops complained about being pushed out. Former staff complained that David's executives cared more about press photos than the people living there. Malik hesitated when Jade showed him the file. This was my father's redevelopment plan, Malik said. Jade nodded. Yes, I worked on part of this. Yes, Jade said again. Malik looked up. Jade held his gaze. Truth is truth, Malik, even when it touches you too. He looked back at the file. There were photos, letters, meeting notes. A bakery owner named Mrs. Roberta Hayes had written 4 letters to King Enterprises. Nobody had answered. Malik read the letters twice. Then he leaned back. I never saw these. Jade's voice was quiet. Maybe that was the problem. People like Mrs. Hayes should not have to know the CEO personally to be heard. Malik rubbed his jaw. Release it. Jade raised an eyebrow. All of it? Malik nodded. But include a plan. Crownless Capital will fund a community support program through a third party. Rent relief, small business grants, legal assistance. If we expose the harm, we help fix part of it. Jade's expression changed. There he was, the Malik she missed. Not just the angry son, the man who still cared. Jade smiled softly. That's the first thing you've said in months that sounds like you. Malik looked away. Don't get sentimental. Too late, Jade said. I'm already touched. The story went live 3 weeks later through the Atlanta business media platform Crownless Capital quietly owned. It was fair, documented, respectful, and powerful. By noon, the story was everywhere in Atlanta business circles. By evening, David King's redevelopment project was under review. By the next day, several local leaders demanded answers. King Enterprises released a statement promising to listen, but David himself said nothing. That silence bothered Malik. He expected anger. He expected pushback. He expected a legal threat. He got nothing. Not one call. Not one public attack. Not one hint that David even cared who was behind it. Jade noticed Malik staring at his phone that night. You waiting for him to call? Jade asked. No, you sure? Yes. Because you have been glaring at that phone like it owes you child support. Malik put the phone down. I expected him to respond. Jade sat beside him. Maybe he's choosing not to. David King never chooses silence, Malik said. Jade looked at him carefully. Maybe you don't know him as well as you think. Malik's face hardened. I know enough. But deep down, a small crack appeared. Because David's silence did not feel like defeat. It felt like acceptance. And Malik did not like that. Not one bit. The third strike brought Lena Park into the story. Lena was Korean-American, sharp, calm, and expensive enough to make Rashad whisper a prayer before approving her invoice. She walked into Malik's townhouse one rainy evening wearing a gray coat, black heels, and an expression that said she had never been impressed by a man in her life. Jade opened the door and looked her up and down. You must be Lena Park. Lena nodded. And you must be Jade Carter. Jade smiled. I like you already. You look like you could find somebody's secrets and their missing left sock. Lena blinked once. I have found stranger things. Rashad whispered to Malik. She scares me. Malik said, good. Lena sat at the dining table and placed 3 folders down. I investigated David King as requested, Lena said. Business history, political donations, private holdings, medical travel, personal relationships. Malik leaned forward at the last phrase. Personal relationships. Lena looked at him. Yes. Jade noticed Malik's hands tighten. Lena opened the first folder. Your father has made many enemies. Some of them deserved what happened to them. Some did not. There are questionable business choices, aggressive acquisitions, and settlement agreements tied to employee complaints. Nothing that should be invented. Plenty that can be proven. Malik nodded. And, Lena opened the second folder. There is also something strange. Rashad leaned in. I hate when expensive people say strange. Lena ignored him. Several files connected to your father are sealed or redirected through a law firm called Whitmore and Bell. That is not unusual for wealthy families, but these files are not business files. They connect to your mother. The room went still. Malik's voice dropped. My mother is dead. Yes, Lena said. Camille King died 13 years ago, officially. Jade's head snapped toward Lena. Officially, Malik stood. What does that mean? Lena did not flinch. It means some documents show activity under a medical trust connected to Camille King for nearly 2 years after her recorded date of death. Nobody spoke. The rain tapped the windows. Rashad slowly removed his sunglasses, even though they were indoors. That sounds impossible, Rashad said. Lena nodded. It should be. Malik's face went cold. What are you saying, that my mother was alive? I am saying the records do not match, Lena replied. I do not have enough to prove what happened, not yet. Malik grabbed the folder. Inside were medical trust transfers, names of hospitals, travel dates, a private clinic in Maryland, a research center in Switzerland, and one repeated phrase. Red envelope protocol. Malik stared at the words. What is this? Lena said. I don't know yet. Jade moved closer. Malik, he shut the folder. No, Jade frowned. No what? No distractions, Malik said. This could be fake. It could be one of David's tricks. Lena's eyes narrowed slightly. David King did not plant this for you. These files were buried too deeply. Malik looked at her. How do you know? Lena paused. For the first time since she entered, her calm cracked. Because I recognized one of the signatures. Jade asked, whose? Lena closed the folder. My godmother. Malik froze. What did you say? Lena met his eyes. Camille King was my godmother. My mother and Camille were close friends at Howard University. I met you once when you were very young. You probably do not remember. Malik backed away from the table. You knew my mother. Yes, and you didn't tell me. You hired me as an investigator, Mr. King, not as family. Jade folded her arms. That was a little cold. I looked at Jade. The truth often is. Malik's voice was low. What do you know about the red envelope? Lena shook her head. Only that Camille prepared one before she disappeared from the medical records, and it was meant for you. Malik's chest felt tight. My mother did not disappear, she died. Lena's voice softened. I know what the world was told. Malik slammed his hand on the table. Stop talking like that. Rashad stood halfway. Malik, breathe. Malik turned away. The room felt too small. The walls felt too close. All his life, Malik had built his grief on one memory, his mother in a hospital bed. His hand around hers, her voice weak as she told him to be strong. Then she was gone. His father was not there. That was the wound. That was the proof. That was the reason Malik hated David King. But now Lena was saying there were missing years, hidden records, a red envelope, a secret connected to Camille herself, and Malik did not want it. Because if one memory was wrong, what else was wrong? He looked at Lena. Keep digging. Lena nodded. I plan to. But do not bring me theories, Malik said. Bring me facts. Lena stood. That is all I ever bring. Then she left. After the door closed, Rashad whispered, I don't know about y'all, but I need a snack and emotional support. Jade didn't laugh. She was watching Malik. He had gone very still. And Jade understood something. David King's empire was not the only thing cracking. Malik's story about his own life was cracking too. 2 years passed. Crownless Capital grew from a secret investment firm into a silent force. Not famous, not public, but powerful. It held pieces of logistics, tech, media, and real estate across Georgia, Illinois, Texas, and New York. Malik rebuilt himself piece by piece. He bought his own suits again. He moved out of the townhouse but kept it untouched. He stopped checking David's public appearances every day, then every week. Then he started again, because something was wrong with David. The older man was losing weight. His suits hung different. His voice on television sounded thinner. He walked slower. But Malik told himself not to care. David had not cared when Malik lost everything. Why should Malik care now? Still, every time David appeared on screen, Malik watched longer than he meant to. Jade noticed. She always noticed. One evening, after a long meeting in Crownless Capital's new Atlanta office, Jade found Malik standing by the window. The office overlooked Midtown Atlanta, not the whole city. Not some impossible view, just the clean skyline, Peachtree Street traffic, and the evening lights starting to glow. Jade walked up beside him. You heard the rumor, Jade asked. What rumor? That David's stepping back from public events. Malik's face stayed blank. Good, it means pressure is working. Jade tilted her head. Is that what you think? That's what I know, Jade sighed. You know, for a genius, you can be real committed to not understanding things. Malik looked at her. What does that mean? It means your father has taken hit after hit and has not fought you once. Does that sound like David King to you? Malik turned back to the window. He's weak. No, Jade said. He's waiting, or he's hiding something, or he's... She stopped. Malik looked at her. Or he's what? Jade's voice softened. Or he's tired. Malik laughed without humor. Tired. My father does not get tired. He makes other people tired. Jade smiled a little. That part is true. Then silence settled between them. Jade glanced at him. You know Lena found more records. Malik's jaw tightened. About my mother? Yes, and she says she needs one more document before she can prove anything. Malik nodded slowly. What document? Jade hesitated. A hospital transfer form from the night Camille supposedly died. Malik's eyes hardened. There is no supposedly. Malik, my mother died in that hospital, Malik said sharply. I was there. Jade said gently, you were 15, you were grieving, and adults were making decisions around you. Malik turned on her. So now you think I imagined it? No, Jade said. I think you were a child who trusted what he was told. That hit him hard. For a moment, Malik had no answer. Then he said, find the document. Jade nodded. I'm trying. No, Malik said. Find it. Jade held his gaze. I will. The final attack came in the 3rd year. By then, King Enterprises was already weak. Investors were nervous. Community lawsuits were expensive. Vendor pressure had hurt the company's margins. A major hotel deal in Miami fell apart after one of Crownless Capital's partner firms bought the land next door and blocked expansion rights. Rashad called it legal chess with rich people. Jade called it petty with paperwork. Malik called it necessary. Then Lena delivered the file that would break everything. It was not about Camille. Not yet. It was about Apex Cure, the pharmaceutical company Malik had tried to buy before David removed him as CEO. The deal that started the war. Lena walked into the Crownless Capital office one morning and placed the file on Malik's desk. I found the missing clinical records, Lena said. Malik's eyes narrowed. What records? The ones Apex Cure hid before your merger. Malik opened the file. He read the first page, then the second. Then he stopped. His face changed. Jade, standing near the door, noticed. What is it? Jade asked. Malik didn't answer. Rashad leaned over. Then he whispered, oh no. Lena said, Apex Cure's lead product had failed internal safety reviews before your deal closed. The executives buried the reports. If King Enterprises had completed the merger under your name, the liability would have landed on you. Malik's fingers tightened around the paper. No, Lena continued. As CEO, you would have signed the final documents. Regulators would have investigated. Shareholders would have sued. Your reputation would have been destroyed. Malik stood. No. Jade stepped closer. Malik, he shook his head. No, David said he found something in 48 hours. He used that as an excuse. He lied. Lena looked at him with calm sadness. Maybe he didn't. The room went silent. Malik stared at her. You're saying he was right. I'm saying the danger was real. But he took everything from me, Malik said. Yes, Lena replied. And the question is why he chose that method. Malik threw the file onto the desk. Because he wanted control. Lena did not argue. Jade watched him with pain in her eyes. Rashad looked uncomfortable, which was rare. For 3 years, Malik had believed the Apex Gear deal proved his father's jealousy. His father had seen him win and crushed him. But now the file said something else. It said the deal was poisoned. It said David may have stopped a disaster. But if that was true, why not tell Malik? Why destroy him publicly? Why let him hate him? Malik did not want those questions, so he pushed them away. He pointed at Lena. Can these records hurt King Enterprises? Lena paused. Yes, then release them. Jade stepped forward. Malik, wait. He turned to her. What? If these records show Apex Gear was hiding fraud, yes, they matter, but they also show David may have protected you. Malik's voice dropped. Do not say that, Jade said. Somebody has to. Malik's eyes were cold. My father did not protect me, he humiliated me. Jade's voice rose. And maybe both are true. Rashad whispered, Lord, this office needs snacks and therapy. Nobody laughed. Malik looked at Jade like she had betrayed him. Jade looked back like she was tired of loving a man who was trying to turn himself into stone. Finally, Malik said, release the file. Lena asked, all of it? Malik's jaw worked. Then he said, all of it. Lena nodded once. As you wish. But her face said something else. Her face said Malik had just crossed a line he might not be able to uncross. The Apex Gear file exploded. News outlets picked it up fast. Business analysts questioned how much King Enterprises knew and when. Shareholders panicked. Federal investigators opened a new review into old merger activity, not just at Apex Gear, but around King Enterprises' internal decision-making. King Enterprises' stock dropped hard. Board members resigned. Executives stopped answering calls. King Tower became surrounded by reporters. And David King still said nothing. Not one interview, not one angry statement, not one public defense. He just stepped back. The silence spread like fog, and Malik hated it. He wanted David to rage. He wanted him to deny. He wanted him to attack. He wanted proof that the monster in his mind was real. But David gave him nothing, only silence. The night before Crownless Capital planned to make its final move, Malik stood alone in his office. On his desk lay the acquisition papers. If he signed them, Crownless Capital would take controlling interest in the broken pieces of King Enterprises. Malik would win. The son would own the father's kingdom. The crownless man would take the crown back. Rashid entered quietly, which was unusual for him. "You sure about this?" Rashid asked. Malik looked at the papers. "Yes." Rashid nodded, but he didn't move. Malik glanced at him. "What?" Rashid sighed. "I joke a lot, man, that's my brand, handsome clown with investment skills." Malik said nothing. "But I need to ask you something as your friend," Rashid continued. "If you sign those papers and take King Enterprises, what happens the day after?" Malik frowned. "We rebuild. And after that, we grow. And after that," Malik stared at him. Rashid's voice softened. "What happens to you, Malik?" Malik looked away. "I'll be fine." Rashid shook his head. "You keep saying that, but fine people sleep. Fine people eat food that did not come from a delivery bag. Fine people don't stare at old photos like they're trying to fight ghosts." Malik's face tightened. "Don't." Rashid lifted both hands. "All right, I said my piece." He walked to the door, then he turned back. "Just remember, a throne is only a chair if nobody loves the man sitting in it." Then Rashid left. Malik stood alone again. The words stayed in the room. A throne is only a chair. Malik looked at his mother's photo on his desk, then at the papers. Then his phone rang. The screen showed Lena Park. Malik answered. "Tell me you found the hospital transfer form." Lena didn't respond right away. There was background noise on her end, cars, rain, maybe a hospital intercom. "Lena," Malik said. Her voice came low and tight. "Malik, do not sign those papers." He frowned. "What? Do not sign them." "Why?" Lena took a shaky breath, and Malik had never heard Lena shaky before. That scared him more than he wanted to admit. "Because if you sign tonight, you will spend the rest of your life regretting it," Lena said. Malik's chest tightened. "What did you find?" "I found the transfer form," Lena said. "And I found the red envelope." The room seemed to tilt. Malik gripped the phone. "Where are you?" "Piedmont Hospital," Lena said. "Room 917. Malik froze. "Why are you at a hospital?" Lena's voice broke slightly. "Your father is there." Malik closed his eyes. For 1 second, the world went quiet. Then he said, "What happened?" Lena whispered. "He is dying, Malik." Malik opened his eyes. His reflection stared back at him from the dark window. Cold suit, cold face, cold victory, but suddenly none of it felt powerful. "How long?" Malik asked. "Maybe 48 hours, Lena said. Malik stepped back from the desk. "No, I'm sorry." "No," Malik said again. "David King doesn't die. He makes deals with death and charges interest." Lena gave a sad little breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Then she said, "He asked for you." Malik said nothing. Lena continued, "And there is something else." "What?" "The red envelope has your name on it." Malik's voice dropped. "From who?" Lena was quiet. Then she said, "From your mother." Malik's hand went numb around the phone. "My mother has been gone for 13 years. Lena said softly. "Malik, come to the hospital." He turned and looked at the acquisition papers. The papers that would end David King's legacy. The papers Malik had spent 3 years trying to sign. The papers that suddenly looked like ashes. "Lena," Malik said, "tell me what's in the envelope." "I can't," Lena replied. "Why not?" "Because Camille wrote on the front that only you and David can open it together." Malik stopped breathing for a moment. Together. That word hurt worse than it should have. He hated his father. He had ruined his father. He had won. So why did he feel like he was about to lose everything again? Lena spoke one last time. "Malik, if you want the truth, come now." The call ended. Malik stood in the silent office, the phone still against his ear. Outside, Atlanta rain slid down the windows, just like the rain that fell the day David threw him out of King Tower. For 3 years, Malik had walked toward revenge. Now revenge was one signature away, but his father was dying. His mother had left a red envelope, and somewhere inside that envelope was a truth David King had carried in silence for 13 years, or maybe longer. Malik looked at the papers, then at his mother's photo. Then he grabbed his coat and ran. Now this is where everything changes, because Malik has spent 3 years chasing revenge. He has burned bridges, exposed secrets, and brought his father's empire to the edge of collapse. But now the man he hates is lying in a hospital bed, and the mother he thought he lost forever has left him a message from the past. So what should Malik do? Should he sign the papers and finish what he started? Or should he walk into room 917 and face the truth he may not be ready to hear? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the biggest secrets is about to come out. And if this story has you locked in, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because now Malik will open that red envelope. He will learn why David King destroyed him. He will discover what really happened to Camille King. And he will find out that the father he tried to ruin may have been the only guardian angel he ever had. Malik King ran through the rain like the whole city was chasing him. His black coat flew behind him. His shoes splashed through puddles outside the Crownless Capital office in Midtown Atlanta. Behind him, the acquisition papers still sat unsigned on his desk. One signature. That was all it would have taken. One signature, and King Enterprises would have belonged to him. The company his father built. The company his father took from him. The company Malik spent 3 years quietly breaking apart. But now none of that mattered, because David King was dying at Piedmont Atlanta Hospital, room 917, and somewhere in that room was a red envelope with Malik's name on it, written in his mother's handwriting. His mother, Camille King, had been gone for 13 years, or at least that was what Malik had believed. His driver opened the car door, but Malik barely waited before jumping inside. Piedmont Atlanta, Malik said. Peachtree Road, fast but safe. The driver nodded and pulled into traffic. The rain hit the windows hard. Atlanta looked blurry through the glass. Streetlights stretched across the wet road. Cars crawled through the storm. The city felt too slow. Everything felt too slow. Malik's phone buzzed. It was Jade. He answered. "Where are you?" Jade asked. "On my way to the hospital," Malik said. "I'm coming too." "No," Malik said quickly. Jade went quiet. Then she said, "Malik, don't do that." "Do what?" "Shut people out when your heart gets scared." Malik closed his eyes. He was tired, so tired. "I need to do this alone," Malik said. Jade's voice softened. "No, you don't. You just don't know how to let anybody stand next to you." Malik looked out the window. For 3 years, Jade had stood by him. She had watched him fall. She had helped him rise. She had warned him when revenge started turning him cold. And he had pushed her away every time her love felt too close. Not because he did not care, because he cared too much. And caring made him weak. At least that was what David King had taught him without ever saying it. Malik swallowed. "Jade," he said quietly, "I don't know what I'm walking into." "I know," Jade said. "That's why I'm coming." He almost argued, but his voice failed him, so he said, "Room 917. "I'll be there," Jade replied. The call ended. Malik leaned back and pressed his fist against his mouth. For 3 years, he had dreamed of seeing David King broken. Now David was broken. And Malik felt no joy, only fear. A deep fear that sat in his chest like a stone. Because what if Lena was right? What if the man Malik hated most had been protecting him all along? And what if Malik found out too late? Piedmont Atlanta Hospital stood bright against the storm. Malik stepped out of the car and walked through the sliding doors. The smell of disinfectant, rain, and hospital coffee hit him at once. It pulled him back 13 years, back to another hospital, another hallway, another night. His mother's weak hand in his, her voice whispering, "Be strong, baby." Then adults pulling him away, doctors lowering their eyes, a nurse crying in the corner, and David King nowhere to be found. Malik stopped in the lobby for 1 second. His body remembered the pain before his mind could stop it. Then he forced himself forward. At the front desk, a nurse looked up. "Can I help you?" "David King," Malik said. "Room 917. The nurse's face changed. Not shock, recognition. People knew that name. Everybody in Atlanta knew that name. "Are you family?" she asked. Malik's jaw tightened. "I'm his son." The nurse picked up the phone, spoke softly, then handed him a visitor pass. "9th floor, elevators are to the left." Malik nodded and walked away. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened on the 9th floor, Lena Park was waiting in the hallway. Her gray coat was damp from the rain. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. Beside her stood Rashid Coleman, for once not wearing sunglasses. That alone told Malik the situation was serious. Rashid walked over and pulled Malik into a quick hug. Malik stiffened at first. Then he let it happen. Rashid stepped back. "Man," Rashid said softly, "I know this is messy, but breathe." Malik looked at Lena. "Where is he?" Lena pointed down the hall. "Room 917, and the envelope, with him." Malik looked toward the door. His feet felt heavy. Lena spoke before he moved. "Malik, before you go in, there is something that must be said." Malik turned back. "What?" Lena's voice was low. "Whatever is inside that envelope, it does not erase your pain." It does not make every choice right. It does not mean David handled things well. Malik stared at her. Lena continued, but it may explain why he made those choices. Rashad nodded. That's a fancy way of saying don't throw a chair before reading the room. Malik gave him a look. Rashad raised both hands. Humor is my coping skill. Let me live. Before Malik could answer, the elevator doors opened again. Jade rushed out, breathing hard, curls damp from the rain. She saw Malik and stopped. For a moment, all the noise in the hallway faded. Jade walked to him. She did not hug him. She did not ask if he was okay. She just stood close enough to let him know he was not alone. That was Jade. She knew when to speak, and she knew when silence was the only safe place. Malik looked at the door of room 917. Then he took a breath and walked in. David King looked smaller than Malik remembered. That was the first thing Malik noticed. Not the machines, not the white blanket, not the IV line, not the quiet beep of the monitor. David King, the billionaire lion of Atlanta, looked small. His once broad shoulders had thinned. His silver beard was trimmed but not as sharp. His skin had a gray undertone. His hands rested on the blanket like they were too tired to hold the world anymore. But his eyes were still David King's eyes. Dark. Sharp. Full of things he had never said. David turned his head slowly. When he saw Malik, something broke across his face. Not surprise, not fear. Relief. My son, David whispered. Malik stood near the door. He wanted to speak. He wanted to accuse him. He wanted to say, look what you did. But the words stuck in his throat. On the table beside David's bed was a red envelope. Malik saw his name written across the front. Malik. The handwriting was soft and elegant. Camille's handwriting, his mother's handwriting. Malik took one step closer. His voice came out rough. What is this? David followed his gaze. The truth, David said. Malik laughed once, but it was empty. The truth, now, after 3 years, after 13 years. David closed his eyes. I know. No, Malik said, his voice rising. Do not say you know. You don't know what it felt like to be thrown out of my own company. You don't know what it felt like to sit in that house and wonder how my father could hate me that much. David opened his eyes again. I never hated you. Malik stepped closer. You sure had a strange way of showing love. David's mouth trembled slightly. I know. That answer made Malik angrier because David was not fighting back. He was not defending himself. He was doing the same thing he had done for 3 years, taking every hit in silence. Malik pointed at the envelope. Open it. David looked at the envelope for a long moment. Then he whispered, Camille said we had to open it together. Malik's chest tightened. Camille is dead. David looked at him. Yes, he said softly, but not when you thought. The room went silent. Malik felt the floor shift under him. What did you just say? David reached for the envelope, but his hand shook. Malik moved without thinking and picked it up for him. For one strange second, their fingers touched, father and son, both frozen. Then Malik pulled away and tore open the envelope. Inside was a folded letter, several documents, and a small photo. The photo fell onto the blanket. Malik picked it up. And his whole body went cold. It was his mother, Camille King, sitting in a hospital chair, thinner than he remembered, wearing a pale blue scarf around her head. She was holding a small sign. The sign had a date on it, 18 months after her official death. Malik stopped breathing. Jade, standing quietly near the doorway, covered her mouth. Rashad whispered, Oh, Lord. Lena lowered her eyes. Malik looked at David. No. David's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Malik shook his head. No, I was there. I held her hand. She stopped breathing. They told me she was gone. David's voice cracked. She went into cardiac arrest that night. The doctors brought her back after they took you from the room. Malik stumbled back. No, David continued. She was unstable, very weak. The lead doctor told me there was an experimental treatment overseas. It was risky, expensive, and it required privacy because the press had already started circling our family. Malik's eyes burned. You let me think she died. David nodded slowly. I did. The honesty hit harder than any excuse. Malik's voice broke. Why? David closed his eyes. Because she asked me to. Malik looked down at the letter in his hand. His fingers shook as he unfolded it. The first line nearly broke him. My sweet Malik, if you are reading this, it means your father finally ran out of silence. Malik sat down slowly in the chair beside the bed, and he read. My sweet Malik, if you are reading this, it means your father finally ran out of silence. I know you are angry. You have every right to be. I know you may feel betrayed. I know you may wonder how a mother could let her son believe she was gone while she was still breathing somewhere in this world. Baby, I need you to understand something. That night in the hospital, I did leave you in one way. The mother you knew could not come home. My body was too weak. My pain was too great. The doctors were not sure if I had days or months. When they brought me back, I begged your father not to bring you into that room again. Not because I did not love you, because I loved you too much. You were 15. You had already watched me fade. You had already learned how to smile in school while your heart was breaking. I could not let your teenage years become a waiting room. I made your father promise me something terrible. I made him promise that if the treatment failed, you would remember my last words to you, not my last suffering. I made him promise that he would let you grieve once, not every week. And Malik, your father, kept that promise even though it destroyed him. Malik stopped reading. Tears blurred the page. For 13 years, he had hated David for not being there, for letting him sit alone, for letting him carry the death of his mother like a stone in his chest. But Camille's letter said something different. It did not make the pain disappear. It did not make the choice easy to accept, but it made the wound more complicated. And Malik hated complicated. Complicated meant he could not hold his anger in a clean shape anymore. He read on. Your father was not in London for a hotel deal that night. He was in London signing the final medical approval papers for my treatment. He missed the moment you thought was my death because he was trying to save my life. I know that sounds cruel. It was cruel. Life can be cruel even when people are trying to do the right thing. But do not believe for one second that David chose business over me. He chose hope. And hope cost him everything. Malik looked up at David. David's face was wet with silent tears. Malik whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" David's voice was barely there. "Because after she truly passed, I did not know how to reopen the grave inside you." Malik looked back at the letter. "There is more, baby. Your father is not perfect. Please do not turn him into a saint because of this letter. He is stubborn, proud, too quiet, too hard on you. He thinks love is something a man proves with sacrifice instead of words. I tried to fix that in him. Lord knows I tried, but David loved you with his whole life. The townhouse in West End was not just mine. We bought it together. I wanted you to have a place that did not feel like a tower, a place where you could be Malik, not a king. The trust was not just mine either. David funded it quietly because he knew one day you might need a floor under your feet. And the founder's protection clause was my idea." Malik froze. His eyes moved back over the line, then again, and again. The founder's protection clause, the clause David had used to strip him of everything. Malik's hand tightened around the paper. He looked at David. "Mom wrote that clause," David nodded. "She was a lawyer before she was my wife," David whispered. "Smarter than all of us." Malik's jaw clenched. "She wanted you to take my company from me," David shook his head. "She wanted me to save you if pride ever put you in danger." Malik stared at him. Then he read the next part. "Malik, I know you. You have your father's fire and my focus. That makes you powerful. It also makes you dangerous to yourself when you think you are right. One day, you may chase a deal because you need to prove something. One day, your father may see danger before you do. And because both of you are stubborn, you may not listen. So I wrote a failsafe. Not to punish you. To protect you from one mistake that could steal your future. If David ever uses it, you will hate him. I know you will. But I also know he will take your hate if it means keeping you alive, free, and able to rise again." The room was so quiet Malik could hear the rain outside. He remembered Apexcure, the hidden records, the failed safety reviews, the liability that would have landed on him, the Federal Review, the ruined reputation, the possible end of everything he had worked for. He remembered David calling for the emergency vote, remembered the cold look in his father's eyes, remembered security escorting him out. All this time, Malik had seen that day as murder. Now he saw it as surgery, still painful, still brutal, still leaving scars, but maybe meant to cut out something that would have killed him. Malik lowered the letter. "Why didn't you just show me the Apexcure proof?" he asked. David breathed slowly. "My source would have been exposed. The records were tied to a whistleblower inside Apexcure. If I released them too soon, the company would have buried everything and blamed you for the leak. You had already signed preliminary documents. You were standing too close to the fire." "So you burned me first?" Malik asked. David flinched. "Yes." The words sat between them, no excuse, no speech, just yes. Malik stood and walked to the window. Atlanta glittered below the rain. He had wanted the truth. Now he had it, and it hurt worse than the lie. Before this final truth unfolds, take a second and think about Malik's position. For 3 years, he believed his father destroyed him out of pride. Now he is learning that the same man may have destroyed his own name to save his son's future. Would forgiveness come easy after that? Would anger disappear overnight? Share thoughts in the comments, because this kind of family pain is not simple. And if this story has held your attention this far, hit the like button and subscribe, because the last secret in Camille's letter is the one that changes everything. Now let's return to room 917. Malik turned back from the window. There's still more, Lena said quietly. Malik looked at her. Lena nodded toward the documents inside the envelope. Malik picked them up. The first was a medical transfer record. It confirmed Camille had been moved after the night Malik believed she died. The second was a treatment consent form. The third was a financial record. Malik scanned it, then stopped. His eyes widened. These payments, Malik said. David closed his eyes. Malik looked at Lena. These are billions, Lena nodded. Over time, yes. Rashid stepped forward and looked at the paper. His face changed. David paid for the treatment, the private care, the legal protections, the medical research, and the sealed records, Rashid said. And then later he covered settlements tied to Apexcure so Malik's name stayed out of early filings. Malik looked at David. You spent the company's reserves, David whispered. My reserves first, then loans, then asset sales. Rashid took a slow breath. That explains the debt. Malik turned sharply. What debt? Rashid looked uncomfortable. Lena answered, King Enterprises is not just damaged because of your attacks. It was already carrying a hidden debt load. Malik stared at her. How much? Lena's voice was soft. Close to $4 billion. Jade whispered, Oh my God. Malik looked at David. You were broke. David gave a weak smile. Not broke, just creatively drowning. Rashid blinked. Sir, with respect, that is the most billionaire way to say broke I have ever heard. For 1 second, even Malik almost laughed. Almost. Then David coughed and the laugh died. Malik moved closer without thinking. David waved him off, but Malik stayed. You let me spend 3 years attacking a company that was already bleeding, Malik said. David nodded. Why didn't you stop me? David looked at him with tired eyes. Because you were building something of your own. Malik's face twisted. I was building a weapon. You were building independence, David said. Crownless capital is yours, not mine, not King Enterprises, yours. Malik shook his head. I used it to hurt you. Yes, David whispered. And still you built it. Malik looked like he wanted to shout, but the old man in the bed was too weak for war. That made Malik angrier and sadder and more lost. You could have told the world, Malik said. You could have told them about Apexcure, about Mom, about the debt. About me? David's eyes filled again. And take away the only thing I ever gave you right. What? The belief that you could stand without me. Malik stared at him. David continued, voice thin but steady. Your whole life, people said you were my son before they said your name. I wanted you to know who you were without my shadow. I failed in many ways. But when you built Crownless, I saw it. I saw you become the man your mother always knew you would be. Malik's eyes burned. Do not make this beautiful, Malik said. It was ugly. David nodded. It was. You hurt me. I did. You lied to me. Yes, you let me hate you. David looked at him. I thought your hate was safer than your ruin. That line hit Malik in the chest. He turned away again, but there was nowhere to go. The room was too small for all the years between them. Jade finally stepped forward. Mr. King, Jade said softly, Malik needed his father, not just protection, not just money. Not secret plans, he needed you. David looked at her. I know Jade. Jade's eyes widened slightly. You know me. David gave a faint smile. Camille adored you, said you were the only child brave enough to tell Malik when he was acting foolish. Jade blinked. Then she pointed gently at Malik. That job has become full-time. Rashid nodded. And underpaid. Malik looked at both of them. This is not the time, Rashid whispered. It is always the time for facts. David's smile faded, but warmth stayed in his eyes. He looked at Jade. You stayed with him. Jade's voice softened. Yes, David nodded. Thank you. Jade looked down. For the first time all night, Jade had no joke. Malik saw her face, saw the tears she was trying not to show, saw the woman who had stood beside him even when he did not know how to let her close. Something inside him shifted, not all the way, but enough. Malik picked up the final page from the envelope. It was shorter than the first letter. Camille's handwriting was weaker. David, if Malik is reading this with you, then do not hide behind silence anymore. Tell him you love him, not with a trust, not with a building, not with a sacrifice. Say it. Malik stared at the words. David's eyes closed. The machine beeped softly. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then David opened his eyes and looked at Malik. All the power was gone from his face, all the pride. All the armor, only a father remained. I love you, son, David whispered. Malik broke, not loudly, not dramatically. He just bent forward like something had been cut loose inside him. The tears came before he could stop them. He had waited his whole life to hear those words, not in a speech, not hidden in money, not buried in contracts, just plain, I love you, son. David reached for him with a shaking hand. Malik hesitated for half a second, then he took it. David's grip was weak. But Malik held on like it was the strongest thing in the world. I hated you, Malik whispered. I know. I wanted to destroy you. I know, I did destroy you. David shook his head slowly. No, life did some of that. My choices did the rest. You just forced the truth into daylight. Malik cried harder. I'm sorry. David squeezed his hand as much as he could. So am I. Those 4 words were not enough to fix 13 years. They were not enough to erase the betrayal. They were not enough to bring Camille back, but they were real. And sometimes, real is where healing starts. By morning, Malik had not signed the acquisition papers. Instead, he called an emergency meeting from the hospital hallway. Rashad stood beside him with a laptop. Lena had documents ready. Jade held coffee in one hand and Malik's coat in the other. Malik spoke to his legal team on speaker. Pause the takeover, Malik said. His attorney sounded shocked. Mr. King, the offer expires at noon. Let it expire. Rashad looked at him carefully. The attorney asked, what is the new plan? Malik looked through the glass wall toward David's room. David was asleep, small, quiet, alive but barely. Malik said, Crownless Capital will not consume King Enterprises. We will restructure it publicly, cleanly, full debt disclosure, full community repair fund. Independent board review, all hidden liabilities brought forward, no more shadows. The attorney went silent, then said, that will be expensive. Malik's mouth curved slightly. Good thing I know a few billionaires. Rashad raised one finger. Billionaire adjacent, let us not get ahead of ourselves. Jade rolled her eyes. Malik continued, we rebuild the company but not as David King's monument, not as my revenge, as something that actually serves people. Lena nodded once. That is the first wise thing anyone in this family has done in years. Rashad placed a hand over his chest. I have made several wise brunch choices, Jade said. Nobody asked. For the first time in days, Malik smiled for real. Small, tired, but real. Then he turned back to the hospital room. He had one more conversation to have. David woke later that afternoon. Malik was sitting beside him, reading Camille's letter again. David looked at him. You stayed. Malik folded the letter carefully. I stayed. David looked toward the window. I thought you would leave after knowing everything. I thought about it, Malik said. David nodded. That sounds fair. Malik leaned back. I'm still angry. You should be. I don't forgive everything. I don't deserve everything forgiven. Malik looked at him. But I understand more than I did yesterday. David's eyes softened. That may be more than I hoped for. Malik took a breath. I paused the takeover. David turned to him. Why? Because I don't want your throne anymore. David stared at him. Malik continued. I wanted to take King Enterprises because I thought it would give me back what I lost, but it won't. It's just a company, a big one, sure, a messy one, but still just a company. David smiled faintly. Your mother would like hearing that. She was smarter than both of us, Malik said. By far, David whispered. Malik looked down at his hands. I'm going to fix what can be fixed, the debt, the community harm, the board, the secrets, but I'm not doing it for your legacy. David nodded. Good. I'm doing it for mine. David's eyes shone. Even better. For a while, they sat in silence, not the old silence, not the cold silence. This one felt different. It felt like 2 men who had run out of weapons. Then David spoke. Jade loves you. Malik almost choked. What? David's face was serious, but his eyes held a little humor. I'm dying, not blind. Malik looked toward the door. Jade was sitting outside with Rashad, arguing about vending machine chips. Malik's voice lowered. It's complicated. David whispered, most good things are. Malik looked back at him. I don't know how to love right. David's face filled with sadness. That may be my fault. Maybe partly, Malik said, but I'm grown now. I can't blame you for every wall I keep standing behind. David gave a weak nod. Then don't wait too long. Silence steals more than anger does. Malik looked at his father's hand, then he held it again. I wish we had more time. David's eyes closed. So do I. David King lived for 5 more days. Not 48 hours. 5 days. Long enough for Malik to read every letter Camille left. Long enough for David to tell stories Malik had never heard. Stories about growing up poor in Southwest Atlanta. About eating syrup sandwiches as a child and promising himself his family would never know hunger. About meeting Camille at a charity gala and pretending he understood the art on the wall. About Camille laughing so hard she spilled champagne on his shoes. About the first time David held baby Malik and whispered, "I will make the world safe for you." David's mistake was thinking safety and love were the same thing. On the third day, Auntie Valerie arrived wearing a purple church hat so wide Rashad had to step sideways to pass her in the hallway. She entered the room, saw David, and burst into tears. Then she pointed at him and said, "David King, you stubborn old goat. You had all these secrets and didn't tell nobody. Camille is going to fuss at you in heaven." David smiled weakly. "She already has." Auntie Valerie sat beside him and held his other hand. For the first time in years, room 917 felt like family. Broken family, messy family, but family. On the fourth day, Malik and Jade stood outside near the hospital garden. The rain had finally stopped. The air smelled clean. Jade leaned against the wall with her arms crossed. "So," Jade said, "how does it feel to not be the villain or the hero, just a stressed-out man with daddy issues?" Malik looked at her. "You really know how to comfort people. It's a gift." He smiled faintly, then he grew serious. "Jade," she looked at him. "Thank you," Malik said, "for staying." Jade's face softened. "You're welcome. I didn't make it easy." "No," Jade said. "You made it a full obstacle course with emotional landmines." He laughed quietly. Then he said, "My father said something about you." Jade narrowed her eyes. "If that old man exposed me on his deathbed, I'm suing the hospital." Malik stepped closer. "He said you love me." Jade froze. For once, Jade Carter had no quick answer. She looked away. "Your father talks too much for a man who spent his life silent." Malik's voice was gentle. "Is it true?" Jade swallowed. "Yes." The word hung between them, simple, brave. Malik took a breath. "I don't know if I'm ready to be loved right." Jade looked back at him. "I'm not asking for perfect, Malik. I'm asking for honest." He nodded slowly. "I can try honest." Jade studied him, then she smiled. "That is the most romantic, emotionally damaged sentence I have ever heard." Malik laughed. Then, carefully, he reached for her hand. Jade let him take it. No big speech. No dramatic kiss in the rain. Just two people standing in the quiet, choosing not to run. For Malik, that was a beginning. On the fifth morning, David asked for the window blinds to be opened. Sunlight filled the hospital room. Malik sat beside him. Jade, Rashad, Lena, and Auntie Valerie waited quietly outside. David looked at the sunlight and smiled. "Atlanta looks good today." Malik nodded. "It does." David turned his head. "Promise me something." Malik leaned closer. "What?" "Do not build a life around proving me wrong." Malik's throat tightened. David continued. "Build one around becoming whole." Malik held his hand. "I promise." David breathed out slowly. "And tell people you love them while they can still hear it." Malik nodded, tears in his eyes. "I will." David looked at him one last time. "I love you, son." Malik bent forward and pressed his forehead to David's hand. "I love you too, Dad." This time he called him Dad, not David, not father. Dad. David heard it. A small smile touched his face. And a few minutes later, David King was gone, peacefully, with his son beside him, with no more secrets between them. 6 months later, King Tower still stood in downtown Atlanta. But the gold letters at the top had changed. They no longer just said King Enterprises. Underneath, in smaller letters, was a new line, Crownless Foundation. The company had been restructured. The debt had been disclosed. Several executives had stepped down. A new independent board had been formed. The West End Community Fund had opened its first office inside the same neighborhood where David started with one textile factory. Mrs. Roberta Hayes, the bakery owner whose letters had once been ignored, became one of the community board members. At her first meeting, she looked Malik dead in the face and said, "Young man, I don't care how rich you are. If you waste my time, I will bring biscuits and complaints." Malik smiled. "Yes, ma'am," Rashad whispered. "I fear her more than the SEC." Jade whispered back, "As you should." Lena Park continued working with Malik as a corporate ethics advisor. She still scared Rashad. Rashad still pretended he was not scared. Nobody believed him. Auntie Valerie visited the office every Friday and called herself spiritual quality control. No one knew what that meant, but the staff loved her. As for Malik, he kept his office simple. No throne-like chair, no cold marble desk, no wall of awards, just 3 framed things. A photo of Camille King in her yellow dress. A photo of David King holding baby Malik. And Camille's final note to David. "Say it." Malik looked at that note every day. Then he tried to live by it. He apologized when he was wrong. He listened before striking back. He still had fire, he was still sharp, he was still a king. But now he understood something that had taken him years of pain to learn. Power without love was just noise. Legacy without truth was just decoration. And revenge, no matter how sweet it looked from far away, could never heal a broken heart. One evening, Malik stood by the window looking over Atlanta. Jade walked in with 2 coffees. "Thinking deep billionaire thoughts?" Jade asked. Malik took 1 cup. "Trying not to." "Good," Jade said, "because every time you think too deeply, somebody's stock price drops." He laughed, then he reached for her hand. She leaned against him. For a moment, they watched the city together, the same city where Malik had lost everything, the same city where he had found the truth. The same city where a father had loved badly but deeply, and where a son finally learned that being loved in silence was not enough. Love had to be spoken. Love had to be shown. Love had to be honest. Because sometimes the person a man calls his enemy is really a wounded person who never learned how to say, "I was trying to save you." And sometimes the greatest inheritance is not a company, a tower, or a billion-dollar name. Sometimes the greatest inheritance is the truth, even when it comes late. Even when it hurts. Even when it changes everything. The lesson from Malik King's story is simple. Before anger becomes a life mission, search for the full truth. Before pride destroys a relationship, say what needs to be said. And before time runs out, tell the people who matter, "I love you." Because silence may look strong, but love needs a voice. If you love this story, hit the subscribe button, share it, and turn on the notification bell. We'll keep bringing to you more stories that are not just entertaining, but fulfilling and thrilling. Love you all.